Okay. Good evening, everyone, councillors and guests. Welcome to this meeting of the Finance and General Purposes Committee on today, the 18th of September 2024. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence received.
Thank you, Chair. So we have apologies from Councillor Black due to an illness, Councillor Breen due to a travel commitment, and Councillor Marie due to a work commitment.
Thank you. So we are for it. So I shall carry on. Declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interest from members in respect of business to be transacted. Do we have any declarations? No. Item 3 is minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee. To receive and approve the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee held on the 17th of July 2024 and consider any matters arising. Do we have any points arising from the minutes which are not on the agenda? Well, go on anyway.
FGP 07248. I want to pick this up when we get into the agenda. That's why I had to sort of reflect, Colin, on that last statement from you. We are talking about priorities as part of the agenda. However, I don't want to go into the detail of what I want to say later on, but just wanted to point out at the last meeting there are 17 bullet points recorded there, which many are actions and many are new actions. They don't feature elsewhere within the documentation in terms of how we're going to handle them. So I just want to make links between us having detailed conversations in this meeting and subsequent meetings, and then we actually forget about the actions we might have agreed.
Yeah.
So I'll just leave that there, because if you look at things like there's an asset management strategy, a deep dive, they do feature in some shape or form elsewhere, but I think we're running the risk of getting completely consumed by bureaucracy around priorities, terms of reference, actions, and I think if we're not careful we're going to drown. And I'll stop there. I'll pick it up later on.
Okay, thank you. Yes. I think most of these things are in, I mean, we can pick up in the priorities and the action log later on the agenda. But if when we discuss those items, you feel there's something that's not been covered that comes back to these minutes, then raise it at that point, if that's okay.
Thank you. I've no problem with the minutes, but I did wonder if the suggestion that was raised at the last meeting about a Christmas market is being taken forward.
I think that will come up under the verbal report on the market.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll cover that then. So I think when we come to the action log and the priorities, we'll keep in mind these minutes and check those 17 points that we're covering all the bases. But I agree, there is a danger of overwhelming us with too many actions, and we need to really focus on the key priorities.
So can I propose?
Sorry.
Can I propose we accept the minutes?
Yeah. Is that seconded, Councillor Shrewsbury?
Yeah.
All in favour of that? So those minutes are accepted and approved. Next is public participation. A 20-minute session is set aside for members of the public to make representations at the meeting in respect of business on the agenda. Representation should not exceed 5 minutes. Now, we raised this at planning the other day. This is actually wrong, this statement.
Yes.
It should say 4 hours before the meeting.
It should.
So
I've got it. I've updated it all now across all the committees, so it will be reflected. But basically, what happened, I cut and paste from full council, and I haven't ever updated it. So
that's fine.
All sorted.
As long as we're aware. So it's, just to be clear, it's noon for full council and 4 hours, i.e. 2:30 is the deadline for any committee or other group. Thank you. So the next item is payment schedules and finances. Various attachments. 5A 5B, 5C, 5D, 5E and 5F. 5E. So these are all the council payment schedules
Yes.
for mid-August, end of August, mid-September, payments that miss the July payment schedule and payments that miss the August payment schedule. So I propose we take those as a block, 5A to 5E, if you're happy with that.
Yeah.
The idea of bringing them to this committee was that really this is the place where we should be scrutinising these items in greater depth and not at council. So if there are any matters arising from those schedules, can you raise them at this point? I mean, I think in future meetings it would be good to raise them in advance of the meeting, but perhaps if there are any things that strike out at you, we should discuss them now. So shall we go through them one by one? 5A first of all, which is the payment schedule for mid-August.
Yes.
Well, should we do these page by page? So if we go page 1, anything? Expenditure, transactions, payments, approval list. Anything? Okay. Page 2.
Well, I did have a query about page 1.
Yeah.
1233 is the number, which is transport to Hive.
That's not page 1.
Oh, isn't it?
No.
Oh, what is it then? It says page.
Yes,
Page,
it is
expenditure
page 1
trans-
of the next schedule.
Later on. Okay. So the first page 1, anything?
No.
The first page 2?
No.
Okay, then we go on to attachment 2B, page 1. Is there anything on there? Attachment 2B, page 2.
I can't see attachment 2B. Oh, here we go. Okay.
Everyone?
Yes, this, I think I'm looking at the right page now. Number 1233.
1233 is
The next page.
£146.
Yeah.
55 pence transport for Mary
Yes,
Mary's to
that's
Hyde
what I'm looking at.
for the Venetian fete.
Yes, it seems an awful lot of money, and I'm not quite clear what
How
the
much was it?
arrangements are.
146.55, 146.55.
What are the arrangements now?
It's the
for-
driver.
It's the driver's hours. He was with us whilst we were there, so he stayed on site. So what you're paying for is not just the mileage. The mileage isn't very much, perhaps from here to Hive,
From
perhaps
4
like
o'clock,
45p
from
an hour.
4 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Was that
4 o'clock to 10
Ah, because I understood you to say, I think at a previous meeting, that you and the mayoress were driving yourselves.
We have done today to try and keep the costs down. That's what we've done today
You
to
went to
Gresham
Canterbury
Street.
today.
Canterbury today, because we had secure parking.
Yes.
So when we take the
I think it's
the
the
things
part
we-
initial we need mace. The mace had to be
is
taken.
a mace bearer,
Mace bearer,
yeah.
because we
So
have to have a driver with a
unfortunately,
mace bearer.
Yeah, we have to take him as a mace bearer. So, but it's quite a big saving, because otherwise we'd have to have a separate mace bearer, and the driver is doubling up as the driver and the mace bearer for the event as well. But it
Isn't
was.
that what the town sergeant used to do?
Well, it
He was
did
both the
when we
driver
had
and the
when we had a town sergeant. Yeah, so you've taken away my town sergeant, and now you're complaining that I'm using
Not
something.
really,
Just a bit,
I'm
just
just
a bit.
inquiring. I'm just
So-
inquiring because it's not.
Yeah.
I don't get a consistent message
No.
about the arrangements for
Yeah.
the mayor and mayoress to go to outside.
Sorry, before Jill, before we do,
Yeah,
could I just, in terms of just building on that, my question is probably a little bit more the next level up around the use of this particular, I don't know the origins, whether we benchmarked, whether we are benchmarking each year, how do we arrive at this being the right solution? And it could easily be the right solution.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, last year there was, because the Mayoress and I were curtailing a lot of the events, we were only going to, which we're doing this year as well, we're only going to civic events.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole load of events where, like, the Mayor of Folkestone will say, come over to my tombola evening, blah blah blah, £25 a ticket. We have completely, previous mayors would go to all of those, and we've been saying, no, we're not coming to your charity so and so. We're only coming if it's a civic event and we have to be there. We've been going. And last year, I think Jill will have to get some figures from the finance officer, but last year there was a surplus which was ploughed back in from the mayor's expenses that wasn't spent. But I'm not sure of the exact figure, but it was several £1,000s that we didn't spend last year, and it came back from, but we'd have to get the figure from Karen.
Otherwise, if you don't spend it, the following year, you don't get the same budget,
Yeah.
taken away from you.
Well, but it still stays with the council.
Council, yeah.
Oh, it does,
But
yeah.
so this
It
year,
depends
bringing
on
all the
something else.
speakership, we do have to visit the other 13.
I was going to add that don't forget that this year the mayor is actually the speaker as well, so there is an expectation that the mayor and the mayoress do attend more events this year.
Yes, but
And the solution I've come up with is the most cost effective and, actually, to be brutally honest, the only solution, because I've tried lots last year to find people. People don't want to drive, for distances. They don't want to be anti-social hours. You're talking weekends, you're talking evenings. So there is not a row of people out there that are prepared to do this sort of thing. So this was the most cost-effective and practical solution, and the person that seems to be available when they're needed. So I mean, thank goodness for them, because I don't know what we would have done otherwise.
well,
I certainly don't want to go into.
I do remember. I mean, I went to the Christchurch University graduation ceremony in the cathedral last year, and I went on the bus, and it didn't occur to me to go any other way. And it's free because I've got a bus pass. And I took my gun because I have one. So
I think we're in danger of falling into Parkinson's law of inverse, whatever it is, about focusing on this small sum of money.
but it's, yes,
Could we move on?
no, I think it's important.
Also,
that we are told.
Well, can I just say, come back on that, first of all, there are taxi receipts for when you went to the graduation
there?
told
Oh,
me.
okay,
There are
because I
taxi
didn't go on
receipts, you
that.
had a taxi,
Okay.
a taxi back.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Danielle and I both have, because I work for South Eastern Railway, we both have rail cards, and we have been going to events where we don't take the chains on the train for free. So we went to Faversham Festival, Hop Festival, totally free, no cost discounts at all. But where there are chains, we're not allowed to travel on public transport with the trains. So the reason for the
I
car,
apologise.
it's protection.
Yeah.
Safety. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, no problem.
Right, shall we move on to 2C?
Nothing.
Anything on 2C, page 2C?
No.
Okay, shall we move on to 2D, which is the expenditure transactions?
Yeah.
Okay. 2D, 2E. Anything on? Now on to 2F, which is the bank account reconcile statement. Somewhere in here there was a Shepherd Neame credit for £750. Is that from the
Tables and
Yes.
chairs.
tables and chairs,
Yes.
which they're not using? Will they ask for that back? Or?
Well, no, there was a
Okay.
stipulation in the licence.
Okay, that's good. Anything else on 2F? should we move on to 2G? Which is the August bank accounts. Anything there?
No. All good?
So, you happy with all those?
Yeah.
When these come to council, we can at least say that we've looked at these in
Yeah.
depth, and hopefully there shouldn't be any major inquiries.
Yeah.
So are we happy to approve those?
Yeah. Happy to propose.
Second.
All those in favour of approving those
Aye.
schedules? Thank you. Right, the next one is attachment 3, item 6, which is the allotments update, and the town clerk has circulated a
Yes.
report on this, and it's good to see that the plots at Black Lane have been trimmed, and there do seem to be more plots that have been taken on, and some of them are being well cultivated and managed. Town clerk?
Thank you very much. Yes, so this is a verbal update report, but I have actually printed it for you and given it to you this evening. So this is just to note at the moment, and obviously any action that spring up from this can go to full council regarding the fees. So this is a report put together by the assistant town clerk, who's been working extremely hard on the allotment sites. So with vacant plots, we currently have 3 vacant plots at the Black Lane site, and 1 that's just recently become vacant at the Sandown site. Appointments have been set up for next week for potential plot holders to view the vacant plots. The waiting list. There are currently 23 people on the waiting list who live in Sandwich, and a further 8 who live outside the area, so we've got a nice, healthy waiting list. Inspections. Inspections were completed in mid-September, and 8 plots identified requiring cultivation. Letters have been drafted and will be sent to the plot holders by Friday this week, that's the 20th of September. Other actions. The first skip was provided on the 20th of July, and it has been agreed a second skip, and this has been arranged for the 12th of October to coincide with when the site rep is available for the site. The information will be sent to all plot holders by Friday this week, the 20th of September, and priority will be given to the plot holders who did not get an opportunity to use the first skip, and that will be made very clear to everybody.
Do we know who they are?
The people that are, well, there have been communications
Okay.
of people that are very disgruntled that they didn't get an opportunity for the skip. So yes, but obviously the site rep, that's why it's very key,
Yeah.
the site rep to be there when this happens.
Yeah.
The Sandown allotment site rental charges. So the background, the Sandown allotment site was transferred over from Dover District Council to Sandwich Town Council in 2017. Prior to this being transferred, the allotment site was reduced in size and a new point of access arranged to accommodate a clubhouse for the neighbouring tennis club. In 2020, the site was given a compulsory order by Southern Water as urgent works were required to replace a sewage pipe. Approximately 75% of the site was excavated and not available to the tenants for over a year. In 2021, further expansion of the tennis club resulted in the Sandown site losing more plots. Due to the upheaval of both the tennis court expansion and the Southern Water sewage pipe replacement, rent has only been charged for the site once in the financial year 2019 to 2020 for a total of £8.15. We understand from plot holders of the site that this was a contribution towards administration costs and did not include water charges. Plot holders for the site have been provided at their own expense, double compost bins for each plot, communal bench and seating, communal shed, water butts, perimeter fencing and 2 gates. So that was at their own expense. They've always maintained the site in general, including mowing the grass and trimming the hedges, so they've undertaken that themselves as well. The site representative there has requested that this is taken into account when considering rental charges for the plots. There are a total of 7 plots on this site. The Allotment Act 1950 and the National Association Society Guidance. So the Allotment Act 1950 Section 10 is, quote, land let by a council under the Allotment Act 1908 to 1931 for uses and allotments shall be let at such rent as a tenant may reasonably be expected to pay for the land if let for such use on the terms other than terms as to rent on which it is in fact let. The notion of what is reasonable was fleshed out within case law to establish the rent must be comparable to other nearby sites and any increases seen across other leisure activities in the area. If the rent was being used to fund other council activities, then it cannot be considered a reasonable level of rent for the allotment. Hence the reason, the ring fencing of the fees. The National Association Policy Document 3, Rents, outlines that when setting rent, it is important that the following points are considered. The long-term financial sustainability of the allotments, based on a realistic assessment of future expenditures. The availability of resources other than rent that will help meet the cost of providing and managing allotment gardens and infrastructure, including grants, subsidies from taxation, community infrastructure levies, the proceeds of properly sanctioned disposals, and the voluntary efforts of associations, site representatives and plot holders. The nature, quality and cost of facilities provided and desired, including the cost of maintenance and depreciation. The actual area of each plot. Expenditures on promotion and administration. The present level of rent and its historic tradition. The likely effects of rent levels on plot take-up. The offer of concessions as permitted by statute. And charges to users of other outdoor recreational or leisure activities provided by the local authority. It also states that as a tenancy agreement includes the rent figure, whenever it is proposed to increase the rent figure, 12 months notice must be given to plot holders. So the Sandown rent setting for that site. There has been a comparison undertaken for similar sized allotments in Kent. We haven't been able to obviously get an exact match. The closest we came to was Ash, which as you can see is 80 square metres, and ours are 70 square metres. So you do have comparison figures there for Deal, Temple Ewell and Ash. It has been a calculation that the administration of the site we estimate is £170 per annum. This equates to £14.70, 17 pence per plot. So the report will go to full council with a recommendation taking into consideration the wishes of the plot holders, the national allotment guidance and the history of the site. It is recommended that an annual fee of £20 per plot holder is set for the Sandown site. This covers the £14.70 administration fees and £5.83 per tenant per annum, which is £40.80 per annum, towards any future work required. And this year there has already been identified the need to secure a water tap standpipe, which has been scheduled with our operatives. Thank you.
So just to look at those figures, there are 7 plots at Sandown Road.
Yes.
£20 a year is £140 a year. The admin costs are £170 a year. So we're losing £30 a year. The admin site, it's not £14 a plot, it's £24 a plot.
Oh, sorry, it must be a typo. Yes,
So,
yes, thank you.
Also, Mr. Chairman, can I do know that we've had quite a large number of water bills in over the past year. The town clerk's told me about water bills. I can't see anything for an allowance for water used on the site. Now, unless Sandwich Town Council is going to provide the water for free, could we add in an allowance for any water that is used?
Yeah, so we're still exploring that site. The large water bill was for the other site.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, so we're exploring the trying to get a check meter for water, because the issue is at the moment that the tennis club are using the same water supply and their plot holders have water butts. So we're not convinced that the plot holders are actually using very much at all. But what we need to do is get some sort of check meter in place. And until we get the standpipe secure, we can't progress with that. So we are looking at getting all that sorted as well.
Super.
Thanks, Christina.
Could I just say, Mr. Chairman, though, could, based on what the town clerk says, and these are the fees that are going to be for the forthcoming year, can we put something in place just to cover any water? Because otherwise, if we do have an outlay on water, then it will come back on Sandwich Town Council to pay for that water. Obviously, if we haven't got any comparable data, we can't actually put an accurate figure on there. but if we could put a ballpark figure on there just to cover it. So if you were saying it's £24.78, is it now currently? Could we perhaps look at a roundabout figure of about £30? So there's a provision for that.
So councillor Anderson?
Yes, well, I may have made a mistake. I've just been looking at the cost price per square metre per year for each of these comparisons. And I may have the decimal point in the wrong place, but they are remarkably variable. So Sandwich, it seems to me, it's about 12 pence per square metre per year. Deal, it's 32 pence per square metre per year. Temple Ewell, it's 8 pence per square metre per year. And Ash, it's 50 pence per square metre per year. So I think we should be aware of these variations, but I think obviously we don't want to be way out of line in some of them, and I would suggest that Ash might be the one the most confident. I don't know.
So, what I can't see, and there may be a really good reason for it, but Black Lane's not referenced in terms of what the allotment fees are for there. So, if we're doing benchmarking, why haven't we included Black Lane as a starting point? Because it's ours. And that should be our reference point in terms of what might seem sensible for the other set of allotments, unless there's mitigating factors. And there are some around previous investments. So I'd also be loath to move forward with a figure based on what I'm hearing. There are gaps around the data. So unless we're driven by a certain time scale.
No. So that's why it was a verbal report. There's no
Yeah.
decisions this evening.
That's
I'm
fine.
just literally sharing with
Yeah.
you. And then obviously I'm looking for further information which
Yeah.
Chloe's working on to go to full council
That's
with
fine.
when there can be obviously a proper
And
decision.
then my final point is, if we've got demand far outstripping the availability, it's not, for us, we're in a good position in terms of making sure that we set the right level of fees within the context of there are a lot of people out there that do want to take up an allotment.
Yeah, I think reading between the lines on this, I think what the assistant town clerk seems to be saying is that the Sandham Road plot holders have done lots of work at their own expense, and therefore if we try and raise the fee too much, there will be a blowback. But I think we need to perhaps bring this to the next meeting, because Black Lane are paying about £80 a year.
I think it's 85.
I can't remember what the deal was, whether that goes back
It is
to
£85.
£40, but clearly that's a big disparity.
Yes, and that's my
so
point. We should be making sure.
I would think it needs to be more £35, £40 a year at least. But we need to do some, perhaps a bit more consultation and come back to the next meeting with a full report.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I know that some of the applicants for plots from outside the town, and I wonder if this isn't the system that we should scrutinise, because it's clear that if you live in what's the most expensive, Ash? Something like that. If you live in Ash, you're going to try and save a lot of money by asking for a plot in Sandwich.
So,
Could I just say, going forward, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I think we all agreed in several other meetings that going forward, and this includes Guildhall and everything else, is that we really do need to cover our costs, because we all know that the allotments, Guildhall, lots of other places, the town council is paying bills that is covering and subsidising services to other people. And I won't drift off onto the Guildhall, but there are a lot of areas where we said we would tighten up and make sure that we're at least covering our costs. So, and I'm stipulating we need to cover our costs.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're being asked to look at a £20 per annum per plot fee. I think we need to defer that decision
Yes.
because that would
Yeah.
make Sandown Road a loss-making enterprise, which we can't do.
It can't be a decision this evening anyway,
No.
because it's only a verbal
Yeah,
report
yeah.
and sharing. Yeah, so this is for you to note,
Okay.
and this is just to give you the background of what's coming through to
Yeah.
full council.
So for the minutes, could we agree that for the next meeting we have a comprehensive report
Mhm.
on all the allotments? I'd like to see a schedule of all the plots, not with names, just with numbers,
Yeah.
saying it's cultivated, it's not cultivated, it's let, it's not let, just so that we can see what action has been taken on each plot. And also a financial summary of the income and expenditure on both sites. And we can then make a decision perhaps about the Sandown Road plot fee
Mhm.
as a recommendation for the budget process.
So do you want this to come back to the committee rather than go to full council? You want this to come to the October committee?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So,
Just one final comment from me. The accepting of new allotmentees. Allotment holders, tenants. So you can see I'm not
Plot
saying-
holders.
Yeah, plot holders.
Losing the plot.
Do they, is it first come, first served? Just again in the sense of transparency, and with so much demand, I would hate to think that there's any fuzziness.
No, so there is a waiting list, and
Yeah.
it is the top of the waiting list, they are
They
offered
get the first
first.
offer.
If they don't
Fantastic.
want to take a plot, they might have circumstances change,
Yeah.
then it will go to the next person.
Yeah.
So it's strictly on what the waiting list
So it
says.
should be.
Yeah.
I'd like to propose the chairman's recommendations taking forward.
Second?
so that we have a full report to the next meeting with a plot by plot summary of where we are with Sandown Road and Black Lane, and that we have a financial report on both sites with a recommendation on the fee
Yeah.
to go into the budget process. Is that agreed?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Sorry.
Just agreeing.
Oh, great. Okay.
And just to be clear, as it says on the Allotment Act, the fees will only be enacted after a year, so you have to give people a year's
Yes.
notice. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
in any event, it wouldn't be. Yeah. Thank you.
Just as a historical thing, I thought allotments owned by local authorities were protected from development. I don't know the history of the
Yes.
southern Irish
Yes.
around the tennis
Yes.
club.
Yes, you do have to ensure that you offer up, if you do use the allotment land, my understanding was that you do have to ensure that there are allotments available.
Yeah.
If you, so I'm not quite sure what happened with the tennis club, because they were reduced the numbers. I don't know. I'd have to ask Dover District.
That's right, yeah, I was just trying to remember back when that happened. I think Dover District said as long as other allotment spaces were available elsewhere, then that was agreeable for it to go ahead, so.
I can understand Southern Water would have compulsory purchase powers, but not the tennis club. Okay, maybe that could be just covered in the report. So next item is item 7, market update. Town clerk to share a verbal report on the Thursday and Saturday markets, including number of stalls. The committee is invited to receive and note the report.
Thank you very much. So just to update really on the Thursday market, we are now at full capacity. We've got 18 gazebos going to be used tomorrow. So it is really encouraging, and it's almost sustaining itself now to hit between sort of 15 and 16 regularly. And we do have now a core of stall holders that are here on a weekly basis, and actually it works really well. We do the promotion as well on Facebook, so I think that definitely helps. And obviously word of mouth, stall holders are actually encouraging people they know now. We've had 2 new inquiries for Saturday this week, so there will be 2 brand new stalls on this Saturday. The Saturday market is a bit more challenging, I think, because we've got competition we know with Deal, but it's gradually building, and the challenge will be really, and it's for council to decide if you want that to continue past October. And obviously it does mean there's a draw on resource. We know that we are using one of our caretakers to twice a week to get the gazebos out and put them up, and that is a bit more challenging in the winter conditions. But I think it's been very encouraging, and I think Councillor Chuka probably wants to elaborate a bit further.
Yeah, so I've written a report for next STC on the decision that we need to take as a group around the Saturday market. There are a number of considerations. It isn't just about finances, but finances are important. So it's all featured in, I won't go into the detail of that now, but I think we've got, particularly with the property manager now on board, we've got a real opportunity to focus more effort around, particularly the Saturday market, look for opportunities to attract more stall holders. So we've got a small core element, but it is very small. And we are going to move into the autumn and winter months. That is a challenge for anybody involved in running a business outdoors. So that will be in the report. I don't think there's much more I need to elaborate on it. I think it's been a success over the summer period at least.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give thanks where thanks is due. So I wanted to thank the town clerk who has organised this all the way through. I'd like to thank Councillor Chuka for his unending sort of hard work and efforts and being there and covering everything. I'd like to also thank, she's not here tonight, Councillor Ripley for maintaining the STC stall every Saturday and trying to get councillors to do that. And finally, I'd like to thank Christina Glynn for promoting the market via Facebook and other means like that. And I think it just shows what a good team we've got, because the market is so successful. And the Mayor would just like to say thank you to everybody for their hard work.
It was just a quick question about the Saturday market, in terms of it had a lower fee. It's got the same fee as it's a Thursday.
Yeah.
Oh, was it the other? But it's not a high fee, is it? It's quite
No, it's £10 per pitch, which includes the gazebo. If they have a table, it's £5 for the table. But Deal charge the same level, so that's
Right,
where the
that's
competition
what
really
was, yeah,
sits.
yeah.
And ultimately, there is a financial consideration, and we can talk about that at STC.
It's very reasonable.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful that these markets are going. It's obviously part of a sort of more general offer that Sandwich has, and there are benefits to that. But just thinking about the finances, presumably when the financial profit and loss, as it were, accounts are presented at the town council meeting, some account will be taken of the, I presume, overtime salaries of the caretaker.
So it's not overtime. It's
not
literally factored in either as toil, time off in lieu, or it will be scheduled so that they are, their shifts are shorter during the week and things like that. So it's all worked around.
Okay. But that still remains a cost.
It does.
And I'm hoping that will be, on the expenditure side as opposed to the income side when we get presented with the.
As the report is written at the moment, it recognises there is a cost, but it recognises it in the sense that it's not been included, because it does vary quite a bit. And I don't know whether the town clerk will be able to have that analysis in time. There is a few days, but it will need an amount of work by the finance officer, I think, because it's not a standard picture every week. Because, for example, the caretaker may be here for a wedding.
Yes.
Now, to do the gazebos as part of a day's work is less than having to come specifically for the market. So there's quite a few parameters around this.
I think with all these things, events, we need to make sure we're including all of the costs. Otherwise, it's a false picture.
I believe on the Thursday, so the caretaker would be here on the Thursday anyway.
Yeah.
And whether he was painting the hallway or putting up gazebos, he would be, his hourly rate is to do the work that the town council is asking him to do.
Yeah.
So if he's actually doing, putting up the gazebos during his normal shift, surely that's a part of his normal
Day's
shift.
work. Yeah.
And then I believe he has Friday off.
Yeah.
Swaps around like that.
Yeah, so just generally, I think the Thursday market's really buzzing now. Very impressive. Saturday market, it's improving. The baker is fantastic there. It's a big draw.
Just you need to say, because you've been filming, you need to say there are the bakers that are available.
Available, yes. The Thursday baker's good. Going back to the last minutes, we talked about doing a leaflet. I know the property manager is now taking on the role of promoting the market, so perhaps that's something we could discuss with him, leafleting the whole town, to try and get people from the town into the markets.
Yeah, it does feature in the report I've written about the marketing, but I think we should rely on the property manager in terms of capacity, capability, and what he thinks will work. A leaflet is one option, but there are other options as well.
The other thing is we've got the October antiques.
We have.
Recanti.
We have.
And I went to the Deal Braggery on Saturday, Sunday rather.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant event, full of people. And if we can get some of the kind of stalls that were there here, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I just wondered with that event whether, or indeed other Saturday markets, for example, whether we could utilise Cowley's Meadow as a incentive with free parking.
Of course, if it's, for example, in October, it may be waterlogged, but it is an option certainly.
We can maybe look at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, are we happy to note?
Yeah, proposed noting the
Notes,
report.
seconded.
Thank the town clerk.
All in favour, we note that, and thanks to all those involved.
Yeah.
For the great work.
Lindsay as well. Lindsay's
And
been
Lindsay,
doing
yes,
administration.
sure.
Yeah.
Critical to it.
Right, the next item is 8, events on the forecourt and in the Guildhall for 2025. We need to review timetable, consider reviewing the use of the forecourt and Guildhall in 25, and share a brief verbal report. Do you want to give that?
Yes, I'm happy to. So basically, we agreed that, or you've agreed that you're going to review the use of the forecourt and the Guildhall for next year for events. There have been challenges this year with events on the forecourt and events inside the Guildhall, and I think it's clear that some of the events in the forecourt, there are tightening up of certain aspects of the events. So for instance, things like matting underneath vehicles, noise levels sometimes as well, that's been a bit of a challenge. Other things like using the drains, disposing of oils and things. So, there are things that need tightening up. I think as well, some of the event organisers are not too readily sharing information that they should be. So, it's a case of I'm having to now, was chasing people for documentation, and some of it I still didn't get right up to the event taking place. So we can't have that happening next year. That has to be tightened up. And if they're going to get permission from Dover District and go through the safety advisory group process, then I clearly need to see sight of everything that they've had shared with Dover District. So obviously the fees as well. The reflection of what we're charging for the reduced of £25. There has been electricity used. I've now had a check meter installed inside the boiler room, so we are in a position now where we can check what electricity before the event takes place and afterwards, and clearly get a meter reading so that we will be able to invoice, which I think needs to be factored in for next year, even for the community events, because some of them use vast amounts of electricity. They've got stalls with ovens plugged in and things, so we are talking vast amounts of electricity. So those are the things that I've picked up really through the year, and I'm hoping that members will seriously look at the fees as well, because it's resources. Even if we're saying we need somebody, a caretaker or one of my officers here on site in the morning to give people access, that's still somebody's coming out, giving up their time. There might not be anything happening inside the Guildhall, so all that sort of thing needs to be factored in as well, the resource cost. Sorry, did you? I thought you had your hand up. Obviously Councillor Miles and Councillor Chuka as well have been working on the guidance for the hire of the Guildhall. Sorry, we haven't started that yet, we're in the process of doing that. But the forecourt certainly will be looking at the documents and guidance for that, and we need to make sure that we have a robust process. So basically that's what I'm summing up. I think we should look at the process, we should look at the fees that we're charging and take real costs into account, address the electricity usage, tighten up on people supplying documentation that they've supplied to Dover District Council, and obviously the dispensation fee, which is given to a small number of local events, whether that should actually be increased, because £25 is a very, very small amount of money. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I said before, with all these events, we need to make sure we're including all of the costs, otherwise we're getting a false picture. I think with the £25, perhaps it's something we need to come back to at the next meeting with the generally the rules and the procedures for letting the forecourt. What we do have now is a new leadership and committee for sandwich community events. So hopefully we can have a constructive dialogue with them about where we are. If we stay with the low fee, then my recommendation would be that we require a deposit to be paid, perhaps £250 from each event, and make it clear up front that that deposit will cover the cost of electricity, cleaning, other costs. So that's one way of approaching it, or we just put the fee up generally, or we have a completely different approach. But I think we need to discuss this internally and with the SCA and agree a way forward, because we can't subsidise these activities.
Yes, thank you. I agree with all that. We were also asked about the timetable, and I would be interested to hear how quickly we could have such a review completed.
So building on that, there are component parts to this, and what I will be tackling in time for the next meeting is the guidance for the forecourt. I'm going to revisit that to make sure it's robust in terms of addressing a number of issues that have existed this year. However, what else there is there's the guidance for this building, use of this building. Then there is the fees, but it's not just about finger in the air and saying actually that looks a bit low. There's a bit of a benchmarking activity needed there, and we need to make sure all of that is joined up. But recognising what the town clerk is saying, we are in a position where we're just not managing this asset, which is a forecourt, and this building properly in terms of the residents. And the residents isn't just a group of events organisers, it's the whole town. £25, we will have a debate about that, but we need to be realistic. The only thing I would flag up is there is a dividend that we should always recognise for community type events. So whilst we might say 25 is just absurd, and we can work through a process of saying where we think it should be, we shouldn't lose sight of the value events, particularly community-based events, bring to the town. And let's not just be completely hard-nosed about this. So that's all I would say, because I've got no skin in the game regards any events, whereas some councillors may have a difficult conversation in their own heads about events versus council. For me, I'm completely clean about this, so I can look at it objectively, and I recognise community events are important.
This is the issue we have to balance, because as a town council, we have some residents complaining about events. We have others saying this forecourt belongs to us, it should be free. We have others saying, you know, you can't do that because we've been doing this for years and years. We have assets we have to get an income from, we have a forecourt we have to pay for over the long term. So there's lots of competing aspects to this.
What I would like to see, thank you, is so I would like to see as quickly as possible, building on what Councillor Pennington's saying, because you know, events organisers, I did it for 12 years with the Christmas lights. you have to plan vastly in advance of the event actually taking place. So I think we should expedite this as soon as possible. I think initially there should be a review undertaken internally to come to a set of fees, a set of new fees, so that things are looked at. I mean, it's quite humorous really, apologies for laughing earlier, but they're charging, these event organisers are charging 25, 30, 40 pounds per stall, and yet we're charging 25 pounds for the whole forecourt.
More than that.
So, oh, more than that, there you go, I'm totally out of the
In
picture
some
there.
cases.
So, as I say, I'd like to see an internal review undertaken, a set of fees drawn up to include costs or additional costs are shown, so everything is transparent and clear for the event organisers. And then I would like to see, as soon as possible, a meeting with the event organisers and explain to them, say, these are the costs, this is how we came to these costs based on this data, and that is what we're proposing for next year. And then we can have some discussion with them, and in some ways we may be able to negotiate one way or the other, dependent on the outcome of the meeting. Thank you.
I mean, just to be clear, we have a policy for this year, which is that the reduced fee should be chargeable. My recollection is we haven't committed ourselves to any figures in future years, which we couldn't do anyway. So it's an open book really.
Yes, it is.
But whether the question is whether we can get this done for the next meeting.
Well, it depends on who's going to put their hands up and do the work. So I put my hand up to do the forecourt guidance.
You did.
Maybe you could do a draft and we can have a meeting.
More than
and
happy to do
circulate
that,
it.
but as I said, it's only one piece in the jigsaw.
The guild and fees, I think, is a longer term project. Possibly. I mean, we could do it quickly. But I mean, the property manager has to really lead on that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to work with the property manager, but I think with the other things he's addressing at the moment, which I think are a bit more pressing, I wouldn't like to, take his capacity, reduce it on what he's currently working on.
Thank you. I remember from some of the applications from community groups for events that they put a lot of emphasis on increased footfall and the increased benefit to shop holders in the town. And I am very pleased to hear that we now have an interlocutor in terms of organising community events, but I would like also to have some sort of interlocutor in relation to the local shops. And I'm not quite sure that exists. I know one or two shopkeepers who are very active in bringing people together.
We don't have a chamber of commerce, that's the problem. So there's no one we can talk to. You talk to different people, you get 100 different opinions.
Yes, so I suppose in terms of shopkeepers, there is a mixed response to the events. And it depends also the type of event, who's running the event as well. That generates certain responses. So I think it's a valid point, Martin, but I don't think there is. And Council was carried out a survey following the first festival event, and it was a mixed reaction, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But those that attended it, as residents and visitors, it was almost unanimously very positive. So that was very interesting.
I'd just like to add to what Councillor Duke is saying. We'd have to qualify what you've actually said, Councillor Pennington, because, for instance, I spoke to a number of the King Street shop owners, and not just the usual ones, but a mixture of newer ones actually. And they said, for instance, when the Folk and Ale Festival was here, some of them actually closed down or reduced their hours, and they say, not to give it away, but they say, when people coming for folk music and drink and possibly food, they're not actually in the market for buying cards or antiques. or cloves.
Yeah.
And so several, and I've had, I think it was about 4 in King Street said during the folk and ale, it's actually detrimental. It brings in tourists to the town, and they spend money in the public houses and restaurants, but it doesn't bring in the right customers that they need. So we would have to qualify what you're saying about the shop owners, you know, it benefiting some, not others.
Well, sorry, just to clarify, I was saying that the community events organisers quote this as a strong benefit, and it was precisely because I'm not sure, and that there may be different answers from different shopkeepers.
The problem
So
with
it's
King's,
precisely the point I'm making.
yeah, the problem with King Street during events is there is no footfall there. People are not going up King Street because there's nothing going on there.
Yeah.
So the shopkeepers don't have any real incentive to do anything. But in the Hop Festival in Faversham, the whole area is pedestrianised, and the shopkeepers with a business sense get stalls outside their shop. They don't rely on people going in, they actually come out into the street,
They do.
you know, and they sell trinkets or burgers or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really apply in King Street. So there is a mixed response from businesses. The hospitality sector benefits hugely from any event, generally.
Also, I just wanted to reply to Councillor Pennington. The economic development manager, Mr. Eagledon, always quoted. He used to quote. So for the last Royal and Ancient Golf Club, he said that it would bring in £80 million worth of economic growth for the southeast, including Sandwich. But on my iPad, I went out on over 3 days of the golf, and a large number of the shops in Sandwich were closed. When I was taking photographs, I was standing in the highway with literally no vehicles at all. So quotes that are made not based on data, I'm sorry to say, are quite worthless.
So just putting a bit of rigour around what we need to do. In terms of, the aim should be to have a new set of fees for the Guildhall itself for 25/6. So the question is, what time frame have we got available to do that, and who's going to take that away as a piece of work? That's what we need to agree, I think, hopefully tonight. A shorter term exercise is the Guildhall forecourt rules and regulations. I can do that as a draft in time for the next meeting. And then there is also a similar document for the use of this building, because some of the misdemeanours this year have occurred within the building as well as outside.
So if we can agree that we bring a report to the next meeting on the forecourt rules, regulations, fees, which Councillor Schuker will lead on.
I didn't say fees.
Not fees.
Rules and regulations.
Okay.
It's a standalone document, and I'm going to do a read through in terms of its robustness.
So the fees should come to the meeting after, once we've had a chance to discuss with the community events organisers.
No, I don't think we should go outwards before we have internally agreed where we want to go with our fee structure. It's for us to lead this conversation, but what I'm more demanding is that somebody actually says, I'll take that way as a piece of work.
I think
The fee discussion.
Fee setting.
yeah, because what we know last year, this was hugely challenging.
It was.
And there was a benchmarking exercise done, and
I
all
did
that
lots
got
of work.
swept aside
Yeah.
because there was pressure, and that's why I'm a bit
Yeah, that's why I'm not
reticent about going down that route again,
No.
because it was a lot of effort. I went into, Councillor Schuker went to, and we had a meeting, and you know things just sort of got swept aside, and it was benchmarking, it was real data, and it was real, you know. And I think if there isn't an appetite for saying we're going to be increasing the fees, then it's not really no point in people going to a lot of work and doing that if there isn't the appetite. And I think that's really members have got to really reflect on what.
So,
it is challenging.
but these figures really need to be agreed by November
Ideally, because
to feed into the budget.
yeah, exactly, budget setting, and also obviously event organisers are already contacting me trying to book for next year for the forecourt, And I've been saying to people, there is a review being undertaken by council. I can't tell you what the fees are at the moment. So there will become increasing pressure over the next couple of months, because as you say, Mr. Mayor, people who are planning events, they need to know, you know, this time of year rather than January, February.
So I am, Councillor Morehouse is now the chair of
SC
community events. I am a committee member. I don't think I can wear two hats and do that review of fees, because I would be accused of bias in
I'm
some
sorry
way.
to say.
Is there anyone else in this committee?
Jill, but can I just speak for the town clerk and myself? We have got two of the largest events that are going to happen in South East Kent, and Jill and I are involved in number one, Speakers Day, number two, installation of the Lord Warden, which is a national event. It's going to be televised now. And number three, we have got the Remembrance Parade. Number four, just so that all of you know what Jill and I are working on here, we've now been given a flashbang. The Lord Warden, I don't know if I'm allowed to release it, but is going to be visiting Sandwich and Sandwich Town Council directly after the installation, and he's expecting to be lunched and meet all of the town councillors and meet the good and great of Sandwich and have a little tour. And we've got now 4 events that the town clerk and I are working on between now and early November. So we're literally working till midnight almost every night now.
I'm happy to, if I can take the data and the reports that we did for last year, I'm happy to ask one of my officers to look at that and see what might have changed.
Yes.
I mean, we do know that people have been putting fees up locally as well.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a starting point. Maybe we...
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to answer any questions in terms of how I approached it for last year.
Yeah.
More than happy.
But is any member of this committee willing to lead on this with the town clerk?
I wasn't putting that on.
I think Councillor
Be
Anderson was
careful, be
volunteering.
careful.
But I was going to ask a question, which is, with this comparative data, which was achieved and in the paper was really good last year, what I would also like to see is information about what the festivals and events actually charge themselves for the people who are hiring via them, stalls and so on. Because I don't think we have that information.
I think we've discussed this in the past. Once we start getting into what they're charging their accounts, it starts to get very messy. We have to just take play a straight bat with this and say, look, this is a reasonable amount. So I think on this, perhaps the town clerk could circulate a draft paper with, ballpark figures for fees for the forecourt. Would that be based on the work that was done last year?
Yes.
And updating for our costs.
Yes.
Maybe talking about a deposit being paid. Cleaning staff. All
So the
those
deposit
kinds of
element will feature in the rules and regulations.
Yeah.
So I can put that in there without an amount, but it will be included as part of the process. My personal view, to be sanctioned or not by the council, is that anybody hiring the forecourt needs to provide a deposit for the protection of that as an asset, should anything happen, as has happened this year.
Sure. And I think all of the events committees have the funds to be able to do that.
I would expect
You would hope so.
Definitely.
Just to add as well, obviously, we do know that the forecourt, if you look at it, it has taken a battering this year. And the cleaning company that Dover District used, we did get them out and they did do a test patch, and you can clearly see the difference when they did that. But it is a lot of money. It's a big cost. And whether or not that should be factored, if we're looking at true costs, because I feel that once a year we should actually get this company in to do a professional clean after the season's finished. So whether or not that's factored in, but that would definitely make a significant impact.
We all our income this year from events on the forecourt is outstripped by the cost of one clean professionally.
That's just
And the other factor in this is the new costs that are coming on Market Street,
Yeah.
closures. So all of that could either mean there's no events at all in the centre of town,
Yeah.
or that there's much more demand for the forecourt.
Yes.
We don't know.
I didn't want to get started on that, but we are looking to arrange a meeting with Dover District Council on that.
So as a way forward, on the Guildhall fees, which we need to bring to November, I would be willing to work on that with the property manager. And as a general rule, my argument would be commercial fees should go up significantly for purely commercial organisations, weddings, etc. And for non-profit, we should be going up by a factor of inflation. And for things in between, we need to.
The only thing I would say, Colin, is that if you are going to jump the fees for commercial activities, you need to have some data. Yeah, you have to. So a wedding in this building, how does that compare with other venues within the vicinity? You need to be able to say, if we're going to go up by 40%, 50%, whatever it might be, to say actually the reference point for this is this set of data.
I'd like to propose the chairman's recommendations for the fee structures being.
So what I'm recommending is one, that Councillor Shuker brings a report back on the rules and regulations for the forecourt to the next meeting. That the town clerk circulates a draft fee schedule for the forecourt with broad figures, ballpark figures, and that the Guildhall fees I work on with the property manager for the November meeting.
Good. Yeah, proposed.
Second.
All those in favour? So we have a way forward.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Item 9, unexpected large income receipts and potential efficiencies. Town clerk has shared a report that sets out some unexpected fee income, which is much to be welcomed. Do you want to say?
Yeah, thank you. So yes, I just wanted to obviously update on the damaged window. It's good news that we do have the full cost of the works reimbursed by the insurance company Zurich. There isn't an update yet on the CCTV footage. It was captured by our local PC and shared with both local schools, but obviously we've had the school holidays. And I haven't had an opportunity yet to follow that up with the PC, but I will do to see if there's been any identification of the people concerned. The gas contract for the Guildhall, the RFO has been working with the utility broker, and I'm pleased to say that it looks like the gas contract for the Guildhall we can renew into a 3-year contract, which is in progress, and it's estimated that this will bring us a saving of approximately £7,000. So that's good news. The Guildhall car park, the budget figure we had was £10,000. We've actually received £33,477.79. So that's very welcomed. Also, STC, there have been 2 income receipts that were not expected. The Maddox dividend income received, that was in August, that was £35,153.03. And also the recovery of Fishergate business rates, £7,980.18. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Chief.
Excellent.
Propose noting the report and thank you for the town clerk.
Yeah. All those in favour? Second of that? Seconded. All those in favour?
Thank you.
It's great news. Next item is priorities for the Finance and General Purposes Committee, attachment 4. So this is an ongoing priority list, and it ties in as well with the action log that the town clerk has circulated. Do we want to go through this step by step? Any comments? Some of these are out of date.
Yes.
So
My first comment was that a number of the objectives are arguably delivered. So I'd like. So this is back to my point at the start of the meeting that I would personally prefer that we distill all that we've got floating around in various places in terms of what might be priorities. If we refer back to the start of the administration year, where the mayor stood up and said what his priorities were, that it was 10 or less priorities, probably less than that. What I think, depending on how you slice and dice this, we could potentially, and whilst this is the engine room as far as I'm concerned of the council, we probably have 40 priorities listed across here. That's not a way to make us, we should be focused on delivery, not on building bureaucracy, and it feels like we're building bureaucracy at the moment.
And now we have the report from Councillor Breen on the
And exactly that's
on the
what
terms of reference.
when I
It's
saw
just too
that,
much.
yeah.
you
So
know.
on the terms of reference, my personal view is good to have, but it's a reference point for any individual councillor in this meeting to say there's a terms of reference point here but we're not meeting. It's not to be used as a driver for this meeting
Yeah.
Definitely not.
explicitly. It's implied but not explicitly. And then back to my point, Councillor Oz, at the start of the meeting there was 17 bullets listed in the last meeting. Out of that I could probably pick off 5, 6, 7 that do not feature in our priorities, but they were listed as potential priorities.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a way of merging this document, the action log and the terms of reference into a single document, so we can say, you know, these are the 15 priorities or actions for the year. Because on this we need dates as well. Progress
Yeah,
to
so
date,
when you say that,
how
time
long
bound,
it's been outstanding.
looking at those,
Um,
yeah, we need
I
to
don't know if that's feasible.
clear updates, which are time bound, what needs to be done and what progress is being made. That's where we need to get
And
to.
just to make sure things don't fall down
Yeah.
the cracks. So, are there any glaring issues on this document that anyone wishes to raise?
So which document are you,
I'm looking at agenda item attachment 4,
attachment 4, which is,
priorities for 2024.
oh, it's, attachment 4 says terms of reference.
It's agenda item,
Yeah, this one, isn't it?
agenda item 10. Priorities for the Finance and General Purposes Committee, update attachment 4. So the first one is considering
Yeah, so I
a new staff structure
think it's
ongoing.
close.
I mean, that's all finished now, isn't it? Really?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
declared that recently.
The RFO software, that's done.
Close.
That's done.
Improve the presentation of accounts, that is ongoing. I think we need to bring that back because now that the software is up and running,
Yes.
we can hopefully discuss with the RFO about, you know, what the possibilities are for better
Can I
presentation.
just update you, Councillor, Mrs Carter, when she was reconciling the accounts, was discussing the same factor about presentation of the accounts, weren't you? And so there is work ongoing with that as well, actually.
So Councillor Carter is leading on that.
No,
Well, you're working with the
yeah, I was just
RFO.
discussing with
on
her how
how
she
to-
get on
yeah.
with the new system.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I have ideas about better presentation of accounts. So perhaps we could have that as an agenda item for the next time. Because, you know, I'm assuming the software is bedded in and that Karen's much more familiar with it. And,
Yeah, there's still a bit further training needed,
Okay.
but and obviously she's been on holiday, she's just returned,
yeah.
but she will be clerking the meeting next month. She will be here clerking the
Okay.
meeting with you, so that
So
might be an
maybe
opportunity.
we could have a session with her before the end of the year so that
Mhm,
for next year
mhm.
we can have a better
Yeah.
presentation of accounts. IT system and website.
So as far as I'm concerned, that's delivered, but it's been superseded. And if you go back to the bullets, what's in the bullets was that we were going to possibly have improvements to the website in terms of its content and presentation in August. But you know, that isn't just the only example. The deep dive was also mentioned as a bullet point. So what I'm concerned about is we're seeing things that we think are really important in these conversations, but we don't then turn it into actions.
Yeah, absolutely. But Councillor Breen was supposed to lead on that, I believe,
Not on the website.
on the deep dive.
Yeah, there was,
And
yeah,
Councillor
and that's, yeah, one of the bullets is for Councillor Carter D, Councillor Green P, to go away and look at how we might tackle a deep dive for this meeting.
Yeah.
Not to have a deep dive this meeting, but to have a presentation about how we might
Yes.
tackle it.
Okay.
I would like to just raise the question of the website because I don't think it's working terribly well, to be honest. I mean, for example, I needed to check that the next town council meeting is definitely on September 30th, and I couldn't find any way on the website of discovering when the next town
It's
council
on the
Yeah.
calendar.
And the home page, if you scroll right to the bottom, the calendar of meetings are all there, and it tells you, you can click on the link, and it'll tell you every meeting calendar comes up.
Okay, well, I didn't do that. But, and things like the Tolwich Fund is under community, and it's not obvious. And there are other problems, and I just do think that somebody needs to.
The thing I
Yes.
picked up today is lots of minutes are not appearing,
Yeah.
going back to May or.
So I was fully intending to do that in August, but other things have happened.
Priorities.
Other priorities, I actually worked on my holiday as well. I did catch up with minutes, which all the chairs know. I was working all through my holiday, so I can't do any more, unfortunately. That was the one thing I wanted to do, and I just didn't get the capacity. I'm going to try this month, but as the Mayor's just explained, we've got a lot of pressures on civic events. So, but everything is on there, everything is on there. I mean, the minutes are loaded with the agenda, so the minutes go up when the agendas go up for each meeting.
They're the draft minutes.
Yes, but usually they're not amended, but if they are. But yes, I have got it on my priority list, but it keeps sliding down. And, you know, at the moment, there are just, you know, I'm spending time with the property manager to make sure he has, you know, the support he needs for his role. So yeah, so it is on the list, but unfortunately it's not to the top yet.
So if we could just quantify that just for a minute, Mr. Chairman, the website is actually a vastly improved website,
It is.
but the factor is that we don't have the staff availability to post stuff that we need. So that is the item that needs to be looked into.
Yeah,
Is the
it is our
delegation.
shop window, you know, it's where people look
Of
first.
course,
No,
I agree.
So I suppose, I think the demands on the officers are immense, particularly this year. And I just wonder, is there another way, because the town clerk, it sounds like a lot of this is invested in you to do this. Do you have any other options that could be explored over the next quarter? So the whole thing is not to say the website's not working, can get it sorted by Friday. That isn't reasonable. But we need to find a way collectively to try and make it, improve it. And there are things, that some of us can do on the edges, but ultimately it has to be the officers because of access to documents. So that's what frustrates me, is because if I was able and allowed to do stuff, I get it, I do my tuppence worth. But unfortunately, all sorts of seems channeled through you, and I don't know whether there's any opportunity to think about actually how do we, for the next October, November, December, get to a point at the end of that 3-month period through other means, because it all is invested in you, and everything else comes on your shoulders. We may not find ourselves moving forward on it.
I think if realistically, the property manager, probably in the next 3 or 4 weeks, he will be in a position where he has asked me all the questions he needs to. He's got all the information he needs. He'll be bedded in.
Set free.
And we get these civic events, because at the moment the speakers day, the installation and everything like that is so pressing and so urgent. I mean, it's 2 weeks Saturday now, and there are lots of things I could sit and bore you with, things I haven't done yet that I need to do. So that does have to take priority. But if I can get past October, and then I think I do have capacity then, because these civic events will have slowed right down or disappeared. Remembrance would be the last one before Christmas. So I do realistically think I can get there. It's just not going to happen in the next month.
And I think we have to accept that, and we have to say that for 2025 the website is going to be
Vastly,
Can we move on with this list then? The next two, relationship between STC and STBF. All future plans, they're all ongoing things. Reviewing of assets is ongoing. Standing orders in terms of reference, we do need to look at them because there are inconsistencies and typos within those documents, but it's not an urgent priority.
my personal view on the standing orders, we've done that this year. We revisit it next year. I don't.
Yeah.
Let's not saddle so many things
No,
around
we
our
can't.
necks that we can't keep on digging on those. On the relationship between STBF and STC, all I was going to say is the working group, the Finance and Assets Working Group, is meeting on the 26th. One of the things I do want to do is float the idea that actually we look to the working group coming to an end. It's been running for too long. And that is a positive statement on the basis we have a property manager and we should be investing the confidence and the demand on that individual to do a lot of what that working group was filling a gap about.
Yeah, and he's making good progress.
He is.
He's putting together a file on every asset,
Yeah.
finding documents that have been missing,
He has,
providing summaries of assets and what we need to do and where we've been, where we're going.
visiting the assets, meeting,
it's
meeting
it's good
the
progress.
tenants, etc.
Okay, the next one is,
Sorry, Mr.
sorry.
Chair. I just wanted to say he has now met all the tenants, and the only asset he hasn't visited is the White Mills, which we're going to see on Friday.
Brilliant. Excellent. Payroll is done.
Done.
Health and safety is ongoing. Funding bids, well, that's ongoing. Deep dive of finance we've discussed. Review statutory declarations for AGAR is ongoing. Annual review of governance. We need to keep that on the agenda. So are you happy with all that document?
Yeah, propose that we accept that
Okay.
with the ones that completed taken off.
Okay. And the comments noted. All those in favour? Thank you. Emergency works for lift at the Guildhall. I think this is good work again by the property manager. Is there anything to discuss on this, or can we just note?
Note the report, proposed note the report, and thanks to the property manager for using his connections to get this done so rapidly.
Yeah. Do we have a seconder for that? I'll second that. Those in favour? Next one is refurbishment of the K6 telephone boxes. This is from myself. I think this is hopefully self-explanatory. The mayor kindly opened the K6 next to us is on Saturday, and hopefully recommendations are clear. Councillor?
Yes, I'd just like the committee to record its thanks and congratulations. I think it looks absolutely fantastic.
It does.
Long may it last.
Yes.
And I know that the next one is in New Street.
Yeah.
I think you said that you want the New Street one to be used also as a little information.
Well,
kiosk
that's I'm putting that to the committee to
Yeah.
make a decision because I can't do it.
So my personal view of the one on New Street is that it should be made secure, it should be locked. It's in the wrong place of town in terms of putting anything inside it. It will end up in the water, guarantee that. It's the one that's had more vandalism to it. My personal view is it could be a signposting into the town in some shape or form, some montage, whatever it is, because actually people get to that point and they don't know whether they go left, straight ahead or right. So it might be a really good opportunity in an enclosed environment to actually give some information. So it will be information giving, but not in the sense of leaflets, etc.
And just to give Mr. Chairman, to give a comparison on that, and almost entirely 100% comparable, in Canterbury the K6 boxes are by the Westgate Towers.
Oh yes.
And today I went past those and went, oh, K6s, and there's a couple of them there, and they have internal adhesive stickers.
Yes.
They're just Union Jack stickers, just to make it look good for the tourists. But I noted they had padlocks on the top and the bottom, and they're totally locked and they're not used. They are adjacent to the river by the Westgate Towers there, and they have not put a defibrillator, books in there, tourist information. Canterbury City Council has assessed that and gone, this can only be an outwardly facing tourist beacon.
So one option for a new street box is, as you say, seal it up, but next to it put a information board with, you know, information about the history of the box and why, you know, what it is. Peter Anneru has done some text on that. But I agree, I think if it's open it will be vandalised or used as a toilet, or best probably to keep it sealed.
Yeah.
But looking good.
Yeah.
With maybe we need to get probably planning permission, but just a little board next to it on the, you know, behind the railings there, just saying what this box is all about and who owns it, and perhaps with a bit of tourist information as well.
Don't forget, it will be right next. It will be right next to one of the heritage boards. Just remember that.
Yeah. Yes.
I'd support that approach as
Yeah.
well. I think it's the most sensible thing, and it's not irrevocable. You know, if in future we wanted to make more of it, then we could.
Yeah. Okay. So
Before you go ahead with the recommendations, I just have one query. The £400 annual maintenance charge, what figures did you use to get that 400? Are you having like somebody like a cleaner to go in, or what was the £400?
it was purely from the top of my head, just as a contingency, really.
Oh,
Maybe
right.
I'll bring less.
Yeah, so
It could be less. It could be 200.
yeah.
Once the budget's there, you can underspend or
Oh,
overspend.
sure, yeah. I would like to propose, say, 200 for the
Yeah,
time
second
being,
Yeah.
and then after a year we
Yeah.
can analyse
Okay.
expenditure, if
Yeah.
that's okay.
But just to note that we would have restored both of these boxes for less than £1,000,
Indeed.
with, you know, a huge amount of voluntary labour. So I think the mayor was telling me you had quotes some years ago for £3,000 or £4,000 for.
Yeah,
So
indeed, yeah.
we've saved you lots of money.
Contractors were going to do it in, they were going to do both top boxes in 6 days, and so I suppose they were going to throw a lot of people on it, but it was vastly in excess. So thanks do go out to Councillor Wiles and his team of helpers. It's an absolutely excellent thing.
It's been a good project.
I've just got one question. Oh, sorry.
No, you were first.
Well, I was wondering about insurance because I mean it's our property, so presumably they are insured.
Yeah, they're adding to
So
the
Yes,
insurance.
if
they
section.
there's a
Yeah.
problem, if somebody
Yeah.
smashes something,
Yeah.
we're covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's toughened glass, so hopefully won't be too much damage. So
Just a thought in terms of if Canterbury are using images of Union Jack flag, you could have maybe images of Sandwich key identify, you know.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
yeah.
That would be, I mean,
That's
it
good.
would,
So
it would kind of capture people's imagination, and then it would act as a tourist, directing people to features that are in the town, like gazing salts and things like that.
So if you're happy with the recommendations that we change 400 to 200 per annum, and that the future of the new street box is that it should be sealed up with an information board next to it. I'll talk to the property manager about how we progress that, whether we need planning permission, etc.
I'd like to propose that.
Okay, do we have a second? All those in favour? Thank you.
Why
Next,
did you get a photo of St John Silks?
because the telephone box is based on
It's great.
the roof of that
Monument.
tomb. Yeah. Gilbert Scott, the architect,
Yes, Charles.
based the K6 telephone box, or all of the historic telephone boxes on that roof. It's in St Pancras churchyard.
Yeah.
If you haven't been to St John's Soane's house in
It's
London,
fantastic.
it's amazing.
Wonderful.
Right, item 7, let's move on. 13. Attachment 7 is a draft pro forma for the budget setting process. This is from the town clerk and the RFO. Do we have any comments?
I said, yeah, just briefly, Mr Chairman, this is what I alluded to at a previous meeting, I think it was Heritage and Townscape, that we need to up our game. We can't have, with all due respect, councillors or members of the public or anybody else saying, oh, wouldn't it be nice to put a flagpole in the middle of the Guildhall forecourt? We need to have a pro forma to say this is what the project I'm proposing to do, this is how much it will cost, this is to show that it's been agreed by other councillors, and to say that it will be put to the budget as to whether or not that money would go ahead and be sanctioned for putting into the budget the following year. Up to now, you know, and this is the previous administration as well, there was completely just, oh, wouldn't it be nice to, like that, and then suddenly the town clerk or the RFO were supposed to juggle budgets and do journal transfers and things like that. We should not be doing that for financial compliance, that when the money is set in a budget for something, that is how it should be set, and we should not be juggling journal transfers. So I think it's a fantastic thing, and I thank the town clerk for it.
Yeah. Mr. Bennington.
Thank you. Yes, I think this is fine and absolutely necessary as a financial step. I think we would also need to ask for new projects, what are the expected benefits and how can we assess them?
Yes, I just wanted to, because I mean, there are one or two things which I think we've agreed to, like, for example, regilding that bit of the warm boiler which now can't be read, as a consequence, I think, of its refurbishment, actually, ironically, for which we paid a large sum of money. So would that now have to go on to this kind of form? And similarly, the ramp, about which I obsess, between the Key Path and Ainsley Court, for which there is a budget, has been a budget for years and years, never spent. Does that also have to be done now?
It is best practice, and I think, because also you would need to ask the council if they would, you know, take the money, ring fence the money from next year's budget.
Yeah.
So it would be
Yes.
best practice if everybody does this for every project and initiative, just to make sure that the RFO is very clear on exactly, you know, what she's got to collate.
Okay, well, I know I'll look after the ramp, but who's going to look after the warm room? Because people have to take ownership of a particular project.
They do. I mean, that sits on the Heritage and Townscape Committee, so maybe that's a conversation you need to have with Councillor Mallet.
Yeah, the chair of that. Yeah, we could ask that. That's a good point. But yeah, even existing items going forward into the new budget year would have to fill in one of these pro formas, so that it is properly undertaken indeed.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'd like to echo Councillor Pennington's point. I think we should include in the pro forma the benefits of whatever it is, so as we can understand that. And then the second question was around deadlines, because I want to bid for something small. I just want to make sure I don't miss the deadline. So what are we working to in terms of these being submitted? And then it's a wider point. There has to be a cut-off point, so that you and the finance officer can actually build the view.
Exactly. So what I want to do is, obviously, if you're happy, we'll be recommending this to full council. So between now and when the full council meet, I can have that conversation with the RFO, and then at full council I can inform members, everybody will be there, on what the likely timetable is.
Okay.
Because obviously it's very key, we have to factor in the RFO having capacity to collate all this information. So thank you.
But to some extent, sorry to butt in, Mr. Chairman, some extent the timeline on the pro formas is already preset, because I believe we have to have the required budget setting done in late October, early November, and then it has to get to Dover District Council, so the preset can be.
There'll be a lead-in time.
Yeah, so the decision's usually made in the December meeting, but clearly you don't want to get to
Don't
December.
want to wait to December to make
So
decisions.
I mean, in my mind, but I need to check obviously with capacity for the RFO, but in my mind, I think the deadline should be the end of October
31st,
to give
exactly.
a month.
I agree.
Yeah, but obviously I need to check with leave and what else is happening as well with the RFO.
So the idea is this pro forma will be circulated to all councils.
Yes.
With a
And
deadline.
if they have any pet projects, it's not saying it's going to happen, but just their bids, if you like. Should it also go to each committee to make collective bids?
I mean, that is a good process as well, because I'm hoping that each committee, there will be an item on the agenda in October, in November. Well, we've got this one now in October, but H&T certainly, I think next meeting, there should be an item on there to invite the members of that committee with the pro forma to, and if there are collective ideas, you know, like it might be warmer or
So
something.
the draft budget is November, so it has
At
to
the
be
latest,
really
at the
valuable.
latest.
But H&T meets next in November, so
Yes.
there's not very much.
Yeah.
I mean, I will be, once council have agreed this, I will be circulating, because you have got a meeting in October, because you don't have, yes.
No.
What you can do is it will come to you all
Yeah.
individually,
Take
so
it.
take it from there, and you know, obviously if there is anything that crops up in the H&T in November, that won't be too late if it's one or two things.
Yeah.
But what we don't want is to be a late flurry of too many, for the RFO.
Okay.
But just also, we need an extra box for a justification.
Yes.
Yes,
The benefits, as
yes,
Councillor
benefits, yeah.
Pennington said.
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing occurs to me for this committee is we need a budget for filming for next year,
That's correct, yeah, that is correct.
because we need to, you know, put together a more
Robust.
professional and robust service. Perhaps Christina will then be able to retire.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Anyway, okay, are we happy with that pro forma with the
Yeah, I propose that that goes forward with the amendments made.
Second that. All those in favour? Okay, thank you. Date and time of next meeting is the 16th of October, so that's the end of the meeting. Thank you.